There are certain points in every franchise that have become the main way for someone to get introduced to it. This could be actually when the series first airs, grabbing the attentions of viewers and inviting them to go along for the ride. It could be a reboot, revising and refreshing the characters and the story as well for a more modern era of entertainment, allowing new fans to get in on the fun. But perhaps the most common way for someone to get into a series is through a sequel, especially when it sets the mold for how every other series in the franchise is done. The third entry of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is this point. The gateway drug for a legion of future JoJo fans, the one and only Stardust Crusaders. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction's theme month, JoJo June, where we're going to be spending the entire month of June talking about the amazing, crazy, over-the-top, and otherwise generally cool series, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So, Stardust Crusaders. As far as JoJo is concerned, this is the big one. Not only because it was the first series to really break into the West and make it the meme that it is today, but this is also the series that broke the mold of what came before it. Nearly everything you knew about the previous series has been thrown out of the window and tossed away for Araki to introduce the new normal, partly by necessity, and partly because that's just how the man operates. What exactly do I mean by that? Well, let me detail exactly what's been changed with the series so you can get an idea of what Stardust Crusaders did and just how it changed JoJo forever. Set 50 years after Battle Tendency, we start off pretty much instantly meeting the new JoJo of the series, Jotaro Kujo, who has willingly locked himself into a jail cell. And yes, Araki did give him the nickname JoJo simply by taking parts of his name and slapping them together. Believe you me, this isn't the worst attempt in continuing the JoJo tag when it comes to the character names. But yeah, Jotaro here is actually the grandson of Joseph, who returns as a main, if supporting character for the series. So, spoilers for Battle Tendency, I guess? Joseph wins. Guess what? Here's a spoiler for about 90% of modern media for you. The good guys win. There you go. Regardless, the reason we see Jotaro in the cell is because he claims to be possessed by an evil spirit, one that will harm anyone that comes near him, and, to prove his point, has the spirit grab the gun of one of the police officers that's incarcerating him, and proceeds to shoot himself in the head. As you can see, he's right about the evil spirit, as it stops the bullet. Otherwise, this would be an incredibly short series. We learn from Joseph and the other major cast member Mohammed Abdul that the spirit is actually an ability that was unlocked within JoJo. Called a stand, as the spirit stands beside the user when manifested, these figures are described as the personification of life energy a person has given form. To put it in more simpler terms, basically think a combination of a character's force of will combined with Dragon Ball Z's ki energy given a physical body, and you pretty much have a stand. Or, you know, a persona. This is the first major change-up we see in the series that remains for the rest of the franchise, as every major fighter from this point onward will have a stand. From what I've been told about the series, the reason to move away from Hamon and over towards stands was actually twofold. First was the simple problem of the structure of the ability in the first place. As a skill, Hamon was designed from the ground up to pretty much exclusively fight vampires or their minions. Not only that, it was something that had to be taught and trained into the characters. It limited just what Araki could do with it that wouldn't be retreading the same ground he's already covered in Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency. This is actually why Joseph is a natural born user of Hamon when we start his story, since it allowed Araki not only to have a different origin point for his character, but allow him to develop him into a master, which something that Jonathan never did. Stands changed this because of how they were structured. By being a natural part of the character's mental state and energy, each stand is a reflection of that character. This allowed them to have wildly different abilities, everything from just having amazing skill and speed, to be able to change the user's physical appearance, or even trapping someone's soul into a bargaining chip. We actually see the stands become more and more specialized in the future, allowing Araki to make them incredibly strong in this one particular aspect. This actually has a rather interesting effect on how the fights turn out within JoJo, but we'll get more into that next week. So what's the reason for the stand's existence? Well, the only one other returning aspect of the JoJo series coming back here. Its villain. Dio has returned. Now spelling his name in capital letters and brackets, the vampire has attached his head onto the OG Joestar's body. The reason for this, other than lacking a body of his own thanks to the end of Phantom Blood, was the fact that he considered Jonathan to be the only one equal to him. This is apparently what caused Dio to get a stand, and, since Jonathan's blood flows through the rest of the Joestar's veins, their own stands have awakened as well. Joseph knows the threat his grandfather faced, which is the main reason they're going after him, as otherwise the vampire would be nothing but a threat to the world. Jojo III ends up going for another reason though, as his mother, Joseph's daughter Holly, ends up not having the will to fight off her own stand. This actually brings us to the second major change in the series for JoJo, the way the story is told. Instead of having a continuous storyline where every single episode is intrinsically connected to each other, Araki decided to make his series episodic in nature. There's still an ongoing plot to everything, but the events episode to episode rarely connect. Kinda think of how Pokemon is, where we end up in a forest for roughly a third of the series, but with buckets of blood, dismemberment, and constant screams of Aura Aura in its place. And that's pretty much the entire series in a nutshell, as Jojo and friends chase down Dio before Holly ends up dying, while the vampire sends out a constant stream of stand users for our crew to fight a new one every episode. The cast does grow, adding 3 more characters into the crew outside of the 2 Joestars and Avdol, and the story they present gives us a mixture of silliness, over-the-top situations, and insane action. And if I have to be 100% honest, this is actually where one of my biggest problems come in, and why I consider this particular JoJo series to be the weakest of what I've seen thus far.
You suck!
Now hold on. I never said that Stardust Crusaders was bad. In fact, when it comes to it, I still consider the series to be very good compared to some of the other animes I've seen. But especially as the stakes get higher and the characters' powers grow, it gets kind of, well, Yu-Gi-Oh-ish. Let me explain. For those of you familiar with the card game-based series, one of the major things that is pretty damned agreed upon is the fact that the characters seem to think like they're 20 turns ahead in a battle. We get instances of, like, say, Yugi sacrificing a monster to the graveyard because somehow they know that the opponent will remove it later on in the duel. This allows Yugi to special summon it and use its ability multiple times to help win in the battle. And that's just me making up a silly example, but that's kind of how the show goes. You get instances of this in every single fight. JoJo does this as well, but with actual fighting. I won't actually spoil anything here because I still feel like the series is worth watching, but the final battle of Jotaro and Dio pretty much feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card battle, where one of the only reasons these characters are able to survive attacks that would otherwise kill them is because of them essentially having a trap card. While the fights are still cool and are something that I'd willingly watch again, I gotta say that it takes out a lot of the drama and interest for me when a second later a character comes out and says, "No, I'm still alive because I was doing this the entire battle!" Stardust Crusaders, as I said, feels like it's the weakest of the JoJos I've seen up to this point because of this fact, relying on the sudden reveal of an X factor to extend the fight or try to make it more interesting. But even considering that fact, I can't deny that this is the series that really gave JoJo its popularity. It's what cemented its creator Araki as a man who would be willing to take risks and ignore others' advice to do what he envisioned. And considering the fact that we're 8 parts into JoJo as far as the manga is concerned, and the stands don't stop, it's fair to say that Stardust has left its mark on the series forever. Come back next week as we end our first theme month with part 4 of the JoJo franchise, where villains Chu and Dewang, the heroes, are capable of feats that are insane even for this series, and we learn just what a quiet life can really be in Diamond is Unbreakable. Or, as it might be known to by some fans, the David Bowie murder mystery.